Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last episode, we had Miss Nancy Ferraro on the show, who wrote a wonderful book called When the Bow Breaks. If you did not get a chance to check out that episode, please do. We had a wonderful conversation, and I'm so grateful that we got to have Nancy on the show. And Nancy, thank you for being on the show. It was such a pleasure. This week, I am especially excited to have Ms. Carol Waldman on the show. Carol is a passionate advocate for neurodiversity and the proud mother of Andrew, a 23-year-old who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 5. Carol's journey as a parent has been one of resilience, advocacy, and hope. From navigating Andrew's diagnosis to supporting him through his education and eventual college graduation, Carol has learned the importance of letting go of preconceived expectations and embracing her son's unique path. Today, Andrew is thriving, having graduated from the University of Wisconsin, completing an internship, and embarked on his job search in Washington, D.C. Carol's experience has inspired her to share her story to help other families raising neurodiverse children. She is also deeply involved in advocating for neurodiversity training in workplaces and exploring ways to support youth adults as they transition into careers and independent lives. Carol is currently writing a book about her journey with Andrew, hoping to inspire and guide other parents on similar paths. She believes in the power of community, advocacy, and creating opportunities for the neurodiverse individual and to help them to thrive. Carol lives in San Diego and is a strong voice for change, both in her local community and beyond. Please welcome Carol to the show today. Thank you so much for being here, Carol.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. This has been a long time coming, and I was really excited to have you on the show. I just kind of want to jump right in. Can you share a little bit about your journey with Andrew and from his autism diagnosis to where he is today?
Yeah, so Andrew's 24. So he was born in 2001. Now he's 24.
Now he's 24.
No, I know. It's just funny. No, it's like, just as a reference, he was born in 2001. So it's, a different time.
Yeah.
When he was first diagnosed, it was more like around age 3. He'd gone to the doctor and he hadn't been jumping and he wasn't answering questions.
Right.
So the doctor said, you should go to a developmental pediatrician. And we did. And she says, after all this testing, numerous testing, it's developmental delays in gross motor and speech. So there was not a diagnosis of autism.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do that then. But we still had to do all the speech and OT and gymnastics and PT. And then in preschool, we had an aide. And eventually he got a diagnosis of autism, more Asperger, when he was going into kindergarten. And then through kindergarten up to elementary school, he had an IEP, and up to high school. And he went through high school and graduated high school. And I mean, it definitely was a journey, but he got to college, and I'll explain more how that happened. And he actually went to Washington, D.C. to do some internships, and now he's home in San Diego trying to figure out what he wants to do next. But
that's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. I know, and when we talked about Andrew, it's so inspiring, I think, it was for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of other parents out there that are listening to this episode, that that's what we hope for, right? You hope that they can exceed and go to college or find a career path that suits them best. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I felt like your story was so inspiring. So tell me a little bit, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a parent yourself, like navigating Andrew's education and development?
Yeah. I mean, when we were living in Los Angeles and he was in preschool, we started applying to private elementary schools there, and we were looking at the public school. And when he didn't get any private schools, even like our temple school,
Mm-hmm.
we thought, okay, this is something is really going on. I mean, we knew he had developmental delays, but this wasn't like
Right.
a temporary type of situation. So,
Right.
and basically the private school said, we just don't have the support services he's going to need. And
Right.
I still wasn't sure, what does he need? But when he was in elementary school, he did get some speech and OT. But it was challenging, I think, a lot for me as a parent because, it's very isolating
Mm-hmm.
to have a neurodiverse child. And
Child.
then I also
Yeah.
had two others that I was trying to navigate, their needs. I think it was just really hard with play dates, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
beginning it worked out, but then as they get older in elementary school, you're a little bit more isolated. You're not invited to as many birthday parties. You
Yeah.
don't know the parents as well. And definitely, it it affected my confidence as a parent because I thought, wait, so much of what, even though we're told like our kids are a priority and we're told to, not everything's about the kids, but a lot of it is, once
A
you
lot of,
decide to
yeah.
have a child. And
You kind of can't ignore it. I mean, it's there every day. So,
yeah, and when your child is rejected, you start to wonder about yourself too, like,
yeah.
I didn't have as many friends, with Andrew, and it wasn't. It's just also more, it wasn't a dislike or anything like that. Andrew didn't fit in with the sports. Like that was hard. Like he loved sports, but when he played basketball, he wasn't put at the level like as of his age group. So
Right.
that was challenging because I really wasn't with he wasn't with
With
his
his
peers, and then he
peers.
wasn't
Yeah.
with the parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as we go through the education process, up to like middle school, he gets some services, but he was at a private school, so it was a little different. And then back to a public school, the services were great. But I
Mm-hmm.
think then you have to think about what's your goal. And one thing, to remind parents, like depending on your child, but if you think your child can graduate, you really
Mm-hmm.
have to advocate that at an IEP meeting.
Right.
And if your child can go to college, you really want to make sure that your child is qualified and takes the courses to go to college. Because I found even we're in a great public school system. The goal is to get him to finish high school
Yeah.
and for the next steps. But it doesn't mean Andrew had this dream of like going away to college, right? And so we had to make sure, does he have the language requirement? Well, he did, but does he have the language require, to high school? But is he for graduating high school? But does he have the language requirement for a particular, those type of colleges that he was
Right.
interested in? So, even if it's a great high school, you could never really just rely on the system, even though I trusted the system. I had to
Mm-hmm.
advocate a lot. And another example was like AP classes. He really wanted to take an AP class, and there was hesitancy, but he
Mm-hmm.
did. He was able to do
Yeah.
it. And later he asked me, well, why was everyone so worried? And I said, well, at the time, you know, they just didn't know. And so in
Right.
my heart, I think he was underestimated at times.
Oh, yeah. I was
But
going to say that the preconceived notions alone, just because of the diagnosis, kind of come into play with their curriculums. Well, I was told even in the public school that Drayson used to attend to that, oh, he doesn't have the capabilities to do that. And I said, well, I don't believe that, but maybe it's the delivery of how it's being executed. And I think that was hard for that particular school to do that for him because of the resources, the tools, like you were saying. And I heard the same thing, like, well, he might need more. Well, what's the more? Because no one was telling me what else he needed or helping me to gain an understanding of that. So I felt like I was kind of like throwing darts trying to figure it out.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm sure you felt very much the same way.
I did. And one of the things, especially back then, is, the ACT, SAT testing.
Yes.
When Andrew took it at the school, his case manager, by the way, who was really great, made sure he had like the separate days and the testing
Yeah.
times, and he was supposed to take it in a February. And somehow, it's a big school, so they forgot. Somehow they forgot to put in the request. And so he thought he was going to take the test then. And it was really discombobulating to him. It's like, wait, I'm not going to take it till April. And he'd studied. And, for any kid, right? Like you
Right.
think you're going to take it then and you want to be done studying. So it was frustrating because I had to keep on that to make sure. Are you sure it's going to be at this time? Because it's over a
Yeah.
period of time. So you just couldn't,
Right.
I want him to have the opportunity to take the test, and
Yeah.
you just have to keep at it.
Yeah. And then,
Um,
and especially when they're used to, like Drayson is used to structure. So if something goes off kilter or if it doesn't happen on schedule, right
oh, it's
now
awful.
you've
It,
got to,
it was really hard. I
yeah,
mean,
now you've got to keep them at bay for 2 more months, and they keep asking, well, when do I take it? Well, when do I take it? Because in their mind they had an idea of, we prepped them for that moment, and then that moment doesn't come. And I think that a lot of people who do not have neurodivergent kids don't understand that component is the management that has to go with that in conjunction with providing that structure. And if it goes to the wayside, it's like, okay, well, what do we have? What tools do we have in our toolbox to make sure that I was always worried that Drayson's behaviors would spike.
yeah.
So what do I need to do to keep this at bay? Because he's gonna fixate on this for the next couple weeks, right? Or however long it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
mean, it was definitely really challenging because, I look back at that like each day, okay, when do we take the test? Because they were supposed to schedule it soon after, and it really didn't happen to April. So that's a long time
yeah,
um, to wait, right? It's getting towards the
yeah.
end of the year. So anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, I hear you. I totally
but probably the
understand that.
school is probably like, okay, they felt bad, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But again, unless you have
Well, yeah, and that's the hard part. You're
neurodiverse.
like, I know it's not a big deal to you, but it's going to be a big deal in our house. Like, I'm
Yeah, yeah, just come over and see,
like,
come
do you want me to
experience
record
my
it?
life.
Like, I'll show you what a big deal this is going to become in our house and that's
Yeah.
the thing. That's the part that I think a lot of people don't see. A lot of people don't see that, when you're asked 3 times a day the same question and you're like, give them the same answer and they can't conceptualize that part. It's very difficult. And it's not like you're trying to disappoint them either, but you're just trying to help them find that new balance now that the schedule or the inconsistency has happened, right?
Yeah.
So I know that you also talked about, sports with Andrew's development and how it helped him to grow a little bit socially and emotionally. Can you tell me a little bit about the sports that Andrew played?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So he loved playing basketball. He played in the elementary school, he played middle school, he got to play on the team at the private school. And when he came to the high school, I wasn't sure if he'd get to play just because,
Yeah.
it's competitive. But his case manager worked with the coach and he was able to play on the junior varsity team.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
he was so persistent, like, and committed and hardworking. He would go to the 6 a.m. practices. I mean, we would get up and go drive to them. He would stay after school. He worked with a
Wow.
private trainer at home. We just kept at it. And then when he was a junior going into a senior, all the seniors, if they were going to stay in basketball, they would play varsity but they'd have to try out. And Andrew thought, I'm not going to make it. And then he said, and even if I do, it's because I have autism and I don't, he didn't want to be a charity type
Right.
case.
Right.
Um, so I said to him, I said, even if you do get on and it is because, neurodiversity, I don't know if that's why they would put you on. I think there's more to it. I said,
Right.
but at least you could like exercise with them and have the social connections. Well, it turned out when he went to talk to the coach said, I'm putting you on the team because you're also a hard worker. You're again,
Mm-hmm.
you're committed and you support the other members, and we need that. And we know you'll play well, as the best you can. But
Oh,
we'll only play you if we're winning by a lot and losing by a lot. Are you okay with that? That way he doesn't take away, the
right.
team's like, wants to win. It's not
Right.
sabotaging it. And so he said, okay. So then one day in December, they're playing, and I can't remember if they were either winning or losing by a lot, but he makes a three. They put him out. He makes a 3-pointer, and the crowd goes wild. Like
Oh my God, how
everybody's doing the
amazing.
wave. The whole ASB section is just screaming. People run down and are high-fiving him, and it seemed like
Oh,
on both sides. The shouts that everybody,
yeah.
people were videoing it, taping it. Um, and then the next day it was all around the school. Like the teachers knew about it. Like the kid who made the 3-pointer.
Oh,
And
that's
it was
so
like
awesome.
on the videos. And then it went to Max Preps, which is like a sports site on the Instagram that kids usually,
Yeah.
star players, but he was on there. And it was just, it's one of those nights where you're like, think, oh my gosh, like it made such a significant difference in
Yeah.
the rest of his year there, although
Yeah.
then we followed COVID, but that's another
Yeah. And
story.
then
But um,
COVID.
right, because he was a senior. But his confidence, and
Yeah.
when he went into school, he was this man on campus, right? But
That's so
he had to be
sweet.
willing to be on that team and follow those rules.
But I think what a great community too to support him in a way where it's so uplifting. And so like,
Yeah,
we celebrate so many little wins as a family, right? But to have your community celebrate those little wins is it's such an
good.
amazing feeling. I'm sure it was such an amazing feeling to experience that and to watch him,
Oh
almost
yeah.
have that success. I call them moments of belief, when you're like, okay, yes, they can do it, or yes, this is going to happen. And so I think that that's so amazing that you not only within your own household, but the community that he was in was,
Yeah.
high fiving and cheering him on. And I think that if we had more communities like that, especially supporting the neurodiverse population, what amazing things can
I
happen
mean,
through that.
that coach, I mean, he knew
Yeah,
like the fact that he was able to, okay, I'll put him on the team and we'll give him,
yeah,
some time out there.
yeah.
And that just made such a big, yeah, it was just so
I'm
emotional.
sure he surprised the
Yeah.
heck out of his coach too.
Well, it did. I mean, it's just like all of a sudden he's like everything just stopped, and
Yeah.
then screaming, it was like, yeah.
That's so awesome. So, I know we talked about, resilience and learning about resilience. And so what do you feel are some of the key lessons that you've learned about that and letting go of the preconceived, expectations that we sometimes have as parents, I guess?
I mean, one thing, it's, Andrew's path, it's not the wrong path. It's just, a different
A
path.
different one. Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard because we have these kids and we have, he was the first grandchild of the family, the first boy,
Yeah.
and the thinking was he was going to perhaps go to this elementary school, and that the thought of, his father went to an Ivy League school, like, oh, well, Andrew will go to the Ivy League school. Like there was these hopes, right?
Right.
And there was never like a question about like, well, we were going to have a special needs in our family.
Right.
However, I had to like I felt, I started to grieve the future that wasn't going to be,
Yeah.
although I've now realized like it's a different future.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I felt so alone because I didn't know
Yes.
other parents going through this and we didn't really talk about it. That was the one
Yes.
thing back then, you know, we didn't talk about the school. I didn't talk about it with other parents. So I didn't know who else. I was busy with my other kids too, so I didn't really have time to like go find other
Right.
groups. But we did do one social group that where I met some parents. Um, I think I had to accept that he was going to take an academic support class in high
Mm-hmm.
school instead of like some other like elective that like photography or something that was
Yeah.
really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Had to accept that my life with all these therapies and social groups,
Yeah.
it was hard.
Well, and
And
you work just as hard as they do. Like I always say, in our family, we've said that Drayson is the hardest working person. He just doesn't
yeah,
know it because of all the therapies and stuff. But so you don't realize what a job that is for you as a parent too, trying to support all of that. And so it is a
yeah,
very isolating and alone feeling because, it's like, is this the new definition? I thought it was going to be something else and it's not, so
Right.
I
I
can
mean,
completely relate to that. Yeah.
and I think like, I look back at it now and I mean, the trips that we took, or if we went to a family wedding, I mean, to me, they were like the most stressful like
I know.
um vacations
Yep.
or deals. And I think the one thing I continue to think like, well, I can do what I've always done. I could work, I could, be a political activist. But the truth was I couldn't,
Right.
something would go.
Right.
And I think accepting that, I had to take breaks from work and I had to stop and I had to, focus my
Yep.
energy on Andrew. And that, I think there's no question in my mind that I was going to do everything I could for him. I just didn't know how it would look.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now, I think, gosh, now I can really like,
Yeah.
I just like, okay, I can make a difference now, help others
Yeah.
because people are still, I was still surprised. I just got a call the other day from somebody who's like, doesn't have an IEP yet because the
Right.
school doesn't want to do one, but he's had a diagnosis of autism and why not? So
Right.
it's still needed we need each other. We need this community.
Yeah, we do. And I think that that's the biggest thing is supporting each other in, in a positive way to keep you. It's almost like same thing. I've talked to so many parents and families, especially since I've been doing the podcast the last several years. And, it's just sometimes I feel like I'm being a cheerleader, like you can do it, because it is daunting. It is hard. And it's one of those things like, well, am I doing the right thing? And I have to stay on top of it because if I don't, then it's, it can go to the wayside and he might not have that opportunity, and
That was the
so,
thing. Yeah.
yeah,
It was
yep,
always those extra, whether it was like an extra social group and
exactly.
I mean, the things I put Andrew through, I mean,
I
I
know.
put him I put him through like there was a whole thing with his weight, like a whole weight management course that we had to go do. And I'm like, who? It was like, but that's what the pediatrician wanted us to do. So like all of a sudden I was going to, nutrition classes and food
Yeah,
classes for him. And, it was like all these, I
yeah,
mean, with our kids, there's always something you have to do, but
right.
oh my God, like
Well,
he's a lot of work.
yeah, and I don't know if you felt this way. I felt like, gosh, I need 3 or 4 more degrees just to understand what the heck's going on. Like I kind of joke around about that too. Like I felt like I could get credentialed in in so many other, facets of therapies and things
Right.
like that because you throw yourself into learning about these things so that you can understand how to best execute it for your child. And so I've always jokingly said, I feel like there's at least 3 more degrees I can think of that I could probably go for that I need to learn about to help Drayson more. And I think
We
that that's the hard
do.
part
Yeah.
as a parent navigating that.
But,
Now, oh,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say my political background, right? Like I've worked for the
Yes.
California State
Oh,
Legislature.
yes.
I've done a lot and advocacy, and I've always been prepared, but nothing prepared me for when I sat during my first IEP meeting
Oh,
and
yeah.
you hear all the things your child can't do, all the things wrong, and you're like, wait, isn't there any like silver lining here? Like it just,
Yeah.
I did not. And what
Yeah.
do these terms mean? Like, wait, no
Yeah.
one tells you this in a parenting book. Like,
No.
what does
I
this
mean,
mean? What does this
I
mean?
I walked into an IEP. I have a master's degree and came out of an IEP meeting and I was like, "What was that?" Like I have no understanding of this. Like you said, the jargon I didn't understand, the terminology, all of that. I was like, I feel like I need a whole nother degree just to learn this. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's why it's easy to as a parent to just want to shut down because it's just so overwhelming and you're like, well, how am I supposed to do this? And that's what makes it difficult. I mean, yeah. I mean, I remember walking out of a few of those IEP meetings going, I consider myself to be well educated and I don't know what just happened in that meeting. So I completely understand. Now, so Andrew, he's through high school and into college, and, it's so inspiring to hear that he went to college. Here in Arizona, I'm really excited because some of the colleges here have announced special needs curriculum for neurodiversity in higher education. So I'm super excited about that to see how that develops over the years. But Tell me a little bit about, Andrew's journey to college and beyond, because I feel that it's so inspiring because he got out of college and even was able to work an internship, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting. When we were applying to colleges at the time, I had to go research, right? Like what programs have neurodiversity and
Yes.
well, at the time it was autism, right? We didn't, neurodiversity was sort of a newer term. And so I would call them, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't find a lot, but there were a few. And so I just, he applied to like 12 colleges. Some were higher level, some were lower level. They use
Mm-hmm.
support numbers like, higher level 3, lower level 1, and just we try to focus on 2 or 3 support levels. And Wisconsin was not one of those that, oh my gosh, you've got to go to for, to get
Right.
support. But in the end, he got off a wait list to get into Wisconsin. And it was such a reach school for him. And so he really wanted to go. And so we
Mm-hmm.
said, okay. And, you know, the, the services that they were going to provide were okay, but not a whole lot at the time. And so it just ended up because of COVID. There was a new organization called Virtual Hall, which is now Canopy College Counseling, that would provide services virtually for him to help him with life skills and academics. So we utilized that the first semester. We weren't sure we were going to do the whole college
Right.
years, but then we ended up doing that, um, and and that helped a lot. But the only thing is, it's pricey, as you start to
Right.
go to these outside support systems, and I
Yeah.
think, oh my
I
God,
can
like
imagine.
how are people going to afford this? Um, I think now more colleges, what I've been learning, that they have more support services
Yeah.
within the schools. I think, like you said, in Arizona, but that was really, really interesting. He did have to learn, no matter what, he had to learn how to advocate for himself in college. He
Yeah.
had to reach out to the professors. He had to know, like, if, he needed extended time, if they weren't giving it to him, that he made sure they knew.
He was asking
Um,
for it. Yeah.
yeah. I think, he in high school, now there are college counselors that do specialize like in
Mm-hmm.
neurodiverse students. There weren't a whole lot when we were doing this, but we did work with somebody who knew about the academic support program. So
Mm-hmm.
that was helpful. But again, I was always researching because you never want to rely just on one other
Right.
person, as the mom, parent,
Yeah.
your gut instinct is, and you're the one who's going to do the most research on them.
Yeah. And I think it's great that you kind of kept that curious mind to continue to research, right? To delve in
Yeah.
and to look at different facets of information to best help Andrew for sure. You
Yeah.
know.
College was unusual because I have to say, it was 2020, the fall 2020. So the first year he spent doing this online. And I was worried, like, well, maybe we shouldn't have sent him. How's he going to do? But he just went with it. I think he was just so happy to be there and
Mhm.
out of the house. So he did everything online. He was in his room a lot. And then in February that year, they were doing all the testing for COVID. There were no
Mhm.
vaccines. People were getting it a lot. And he got it. And the rules were, well, he got exposed at first. If you
Uh-huh.
are exposed, you go to the hotel for 14 days. And so
Right.
he did, and he actually had COVID. And I was most worried about his mental health,
Of
being confined
course,
to a
yeah.
hotel room. You weren't allowed to leave the room, but I just had all his family and friends call him. I sent him bagels.
Yeah.
He had some exercises he did in the hotel room. I forgot that he had a list that he could do, like from this trainer that he'd had, and like,
Right.
oh, I guess he had a TV and a window to look outside, and he made it through.
He
So
made
like,
it
wow,
through.
you're resilient.
Right.
Uh, he did an internship in Washington, D.C., where he had to live with 2 other kids he didn't know, which
Wow.
surprised me that, that's a big
That's a big deal.
ordeal.
Yeah, that's a
And
really big
then
deal.
later he also worked in D.C. No, he worked in Wisconsin one
Mm-hmm.
summer. He stayed there and did canvassing for NPR, and he went door to door, sort of cold knocking. And I was impressed with that too. I'm like, okay, you can do this.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I love those surprising moments because it's
Yeah.
like, then you're like, okay, it's all that. Sometimes as parents, the worry, right, that we have, it's like, oh, okay, I can take a little bit of a sigh of relief. Like he's doing it. He's going through it, So I think that's absolutely fantastic. We have just a few minutes left on the
Oh yeah.
show, but I do want to kind of jump into your, you know, um, you're an advocate for neurodiversity training in the workplace. You've been very active in this, and so I wanted to kind of talk about what you're doing today, and ask for your advice on how companies can create more inclusive environments and what you're doing within that advocacy work today.
So when Andrew, graduated, I was just worried about like how, he's been looking for a job, and I thought like it's been really challenging. And I thought, well, what are there support systems out there to help young neurodiverse adults who graduate college? And there are. We found one, Broad Futures. It was an internship program in DC that he did. Um, but I didn't find a whole lot of workplaces right away. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm going to start a website and then to be a resource page for
Mm-hmm.
parents to and families to access for what happens after you graduate high school. And
Right.
for the workplace, I think a lot of his interviews have been on Zoom. So I think, oh my gosh, that's not really like
Yeah.
the easiest process for designed for neurodivergent individuals. I
Right.
think the unwritten social rules, you know, the reading the room. I mean, there's so many areas where if you're neurodivergent, that's harder. And so
It's more difficult.
training
Yeah.
like employers on these areas to look for, because when you want to hire someone, if you go by just their social skills or, if they're slow at processing information or
Mm-hmm.
response, they're out, and I think understanding more about the neurodiverse population
Yeah.
and making accommodations. There are companies that do neurodiverse hiring practices like
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft, Dell, and a number of others. But they're more specific programs.
Right.
But it would be great if more companies
Companies did
expanded
that.
with
Yeah.
neurodiversity hiring.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of hidden talents in the neurodiversity community that are being underestimated because of the delays, being slow or not doing it as fast, or the production of things, right? The outputs.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I wish that companies could I understand, at the end of the day, money, right? Budgets, funding, all of those things. But I wish that we could take a step back and pause and really see some of the true talents of this neurodiverse population, because I think they have a lot to offer. It's just they're, being underestimated because of the work demands. And so sometimes I'm like, well, should we be looking at work demands differently?
Yeah, maybe flexible work hours,
Yeah,
maybe more, now people do work at home more, but, having managers that are, understandable, they don't have to understand everything, but just enough where, okay, so many of these people, he graduated college with a political science degree, so
right.
he's got the information. It just may be, training him and
Helping him
whatever
a little
he
bit
ends up
more.
doing, but yeah, or anybody ends up
Yeah.
doing.
Now, is your book done yet, Carol?
It's not done. No, I'm
Not yet.
still writing it.
It's a work in
Still working on
progress.
it. Yeah,
That's
the
good. That's
progress.
okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, for our listeners today, I want them to know that if they need to get in touch with you, any information I have, I'm going to post in the show notes so people can get in touch
Yeah.
with you, Carol, and talk to you more about, especially in the workplace and advocacy for the neurodiverse population. But I thank you so much for sharing your story about Andrew. And I don't know Andrew, and I'm extremely proud of him. So please
Well,
commend
thank
him for
you.
all of his accomplishments. And I just think it's such a wonderful thing that the two of you have created through this journey, and your family throughout this journey supporting Andrew. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and you're truly an inspiration to everyone. So thank you so much for your time and energy today. I really appreciate you. And
Thanks, Nikki. And just one thing is like, just however they are in high school doesn't mean who they will be. Whatever age you think, like they're always changing and growing.
Yes,
and learning.
That's true. That's such a great thing to keep in mind. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much. I really
You're
do
welcome.
appreciate
Thank you
Carol.
for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this concludes our episode for today. If you have questions, comments, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you have not done so already, or feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. If you like what you're hearing, please spread the word so that we can continue to empower autism families, and feel free to give us a good rating on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, keep working on your puzzle, and remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.